thinking about buying or selling a home in Alamo Heights, there's one question you've probably already asked yourself, probably maybe more than once. And the question is 2026 a good time to buy or sell? Well, it's actually one of the most searched real estate questions that we see right now, and people ask us all daily because people are trying to figure out timing. Should they move now? Should they wait? Are the prices going to change? Are interest rates going to go up? Are interest rates going to go down? Because if you're specifically looking at Alamo Heights, that question becomes even more important because the housing market here doesn't behave exactly the same way as broader San Antonio market. That makes sense. We're our own unique community. Alamo Heights has its own rhythm, its own character. Has really its own inventory patterns and its own buyer demand, which means the national headlines you see about the housing market don't always tell you what's actually happening here. So what we want to do is we want to make this video to answer the questions that we get daily from our clients and friends when we're out and about. If you're thinking about buying a home in Alamo Heights, we want to talk about what buyers are experiencing right now because that's probably what you'll experience. And if you're a homeowner wondering whether this might be the right time to sell, we'll walk you through what sellers need to understand about today's market. And we also want to explain something that many people discover after they've been watching the market for a while. Trying to perfectly time the real estate market is honestly, it's incredibly difficult. But understanding how the market works, well, we think understanding things like buyer behavior and things like understanding the local dynamics in Alamo Heights are really good. It actually helps people make confident decisions. So knowledge is power. Today, we're going to walk you through several things. First, we want to talk briefly about the national housing market heading into 2026. It's good to understand what's happening nationally because those larger trends influence what buyers and sellers experience locally. Then we'll zoom in on what we're seeing specifically in Alamo Heights every single day. We'll talk about inventory and our thoughts on that. We'll talk about buyer demand, interest rates, all things that are on every buyer and seller's minds. And we also want to talk about the types of homes buyers are responding to right now. We'll walk you through what buyers need to understand if they're considering purchasing in 2026. And those are just basic things. Also, we want the homeowners to know if there are some different things if they're deciding whether to sell, because the headlines tend to make the market feel unpredictable. And when you understand the underlying dynamics, it actually becomes much easier to evaluate your options. But before we talk specifically about Alamo Heights, let's zoom out for a moment and look at the broader housing picture across the country. Because the housing market over the past several years has been unusually complex. If you look at the headlines, if you're reading anything or talk to anyone that in the business, they can tell you. If you think back to 2020 and 2021, the houses were moving extremely quickly. Interest rates were historically low, and buyer demand was extremely strong. In many areas, homes were receiving multiple offers almost immediately after being listed. Then interest rates began rising, and that change created a very different dynamic in the housing market. So what happens when interest rates rise? Of course, that makes sense. Monthly payments increase. And when monthly payments increase, some buyers decide to put a pause on their search, which that can reduce the demand in some markets. Buyers just step back but something else happens at the same time. Many homeowners decided not to sell. And that combination, because millions of homeowners had mortgages with extremely low rates, they just sat still, and selling their home would mean replacing that mortgage with a new loan at a higher rate. So instead of listing their homes, many people simply stayed where they were. They made do, which meant fewer houses were available for sale. And that created an unusual balance in the housing market. So demand cooled somewhat, but supply remained limited. And that helped support home prices actually in many areas. And now as we move into 2026, the housing market is gradually adjusting to this new environment. Interest rates are higher than the historic lows we saw a few years ago. I don't know if we'll ever see interest rates like that again, but buyers and sellers are getting used to it and they're adapting. In many markets, activity is beginning to normalize. So we're starting to see it a lot this year. Here's where the local perspective becomes incredibly important, because while national housing trends provide useful context, the market in Alamo Heights often behaves differently from the broader region. And Alamo Heights is really one of the most established neighborhoods in central San Antonio. It's got a group of devoted followers. Many of the homes have architectural and long histories. People love knowing their neighbors. They like being able to have that small town feel in the middle of a big city. And homeowners often remain in those properties for many years, which means the number of homes available for sale at any given time can be relatively limited. That limited inventory plays a major role in how the market behaves here. All that makes sense. So when a thoughtfully maintained home becomes available, buyers often pay attention very quickly, especially when the home has architectural character or has been carefully updated. So when people ask whether 2026 is a good time to sell or buy in Alamo Heights, the answer requires a much more local perspective than the national headlines usually provide. And that's what we're going to explore together in the rest of this video. So before we go any further, I just want to briefly introduce myself for those who may be new to our channel. I'm Caroline Deckard with Park Properties Group at the Phyllis Browning Company here in San Antonio. I have a business partner, Suzanne Marco, and we work together and really helping our clients focus on buyers and sellers in central San Antonio neighborhoods, including Alamo Heights, Terrell Hills, Alamos Park, Monte Vista, and surrounding areas. One of the reasons we create these videos is simply to answer the questions buyers and homeowners ask us most often. Questions like whether this might be the right time to buy or sell. Another thing is, how is the local market actually behaving beyond the headlines? People everywhere we go are asking us those questions. So let's start by looking at the buyer perspective in Alamo Heights as we move into the spring market of 2026, because many buyers are asking a very similar question. Should we buy or should we wait? And they want to look a little bit, but they're unsure. And so we want to start with that buyer perspective in Alamo Heights, because this is where many people begin their thought process. They look at interest rates. Well, they read the headlines. Yeah, that's a good place. They ask themselves a very simple question. Should we wait or should we start looking now? One of the things that we like to do is when buyers ask a question, what we try to figure out is what they're trying to do is time the market and know whether prices might go down or whether interest rates might improve, and maybe whether waiting would create a better opportunity later. They ask us those, and the challenge with that approach is that timing the real estate market perfectly is extremely difficult. Even economists who study marketing trends professionally don't consistently predict interest rate movements or price trends with precision. So what buyers can do is understand the conditions that exist today, because when buyers understand how the current market works, they can make decisions based on real information rather than speculation. And knowledge is power. One of the most important things buyers discover when they begin searching in Alamo Heights is that inventory can be relatively limited. This isn't a neighborhood where there's hundreds of homes come on the market every month. There's a new one coming on every day. It's a little different than that. Many homeowners remain in their homes for long periods of time, which means the number of available homes can sometimes be quite small. And when inventory is limited, something interesting happens, and we see it every day. buyers tend to pay close attention when a home becomes available that fits their criteria. We try to always ferret out the good ones, but we get texts from our clients too. I want to see this house, especially if a home has architectural character and thoughtful updates. And that dynamic is one of the reasons Alamo Heights market often behaves differently than broader suburban markets. In larger suburban areas, buyers might have dozens of similar homes to choose from. Well, that is nice if you want to be in an established neighborhood like Alamo Heights. Each home actually tends to be very unique, which means when buyers find a property that fits their needs, they sometimes decide to move forward rather than waiting for something identical to appear later, because it doesn't. When we're out with a buyer and we find a property that fits everything they told us they want, we let them know this is the one. Real estate decisions are rarely just about interest rates. It's finding the house you fall in love with. And finding the house that fits your love of architecture. Is it in the condition that you feel most comfortable in? Is it in the location that you want? Those are all questions. And how this property fits into your long-term plans. Now let's talk for a moment about a concept that gets a lot of attention online, and the idea of waiting for the market to change. It's a lot. It's everywhere, but and really a lot of people consider that strategy. They watch the interest rates. They watch the home prices, and they hope that the perfect moment will appear. I hate to say it, but the reality is that the housing markets rarely move in simple or predictable ways. Interest rates may change gradually, which we love it when they go down, and inventory may increase or decrease depending on homeowners' decisions. And sometimes when interest rates move lower, actually more buyers re-enter the market at the same time, and it creates like a multiple offer situation. When there's more buyers, there's more competition for homes. So instead of focusing only on timing the market, many buyers should focus on preparation. We like our buyers to speak with a lender so they understand their buying power. That's really important. They become familiar with the neighborhoods they're considering, and just when the right home appears, they're able to evaluate the opportunity confidently because they've spoken to a lender, they know what they want, and they can move forward. Now let's shift for a moment and talk about a seller's perspective, because homeowners in Alamo Heights are asking actually a very similar question. They want to know whether 2026 might be a good time to sell. And we are here to answer that. When we talk with a homeowner about that decision, the conversation often begins with preparation. Preparation has an enormous influence on how buyers respond to a property. We believe that homes that are thoughtfully prepared tend to attract more interest. And buyers notice things. They notice the details. They notice the maintenance. They notice how the home feels when they walk through the front door. That's a big one. And so those impressions can influence how a buyer thinks about the value of your home. And another important factor for sellers is pricing strategy. Pricing is a very important conversation, and it's one of the most powerful decisions in the entire selling process. If a home is priced thoughtfully in relation to the current market, it tends to attract stronger attention from buyers. And when buyers see a home that feels well-positioned relative to the other available properties, they often feel more comfortable scheduling a showing. Basically, when it's priced right, people want to go in and see it. And which is why preparation and pricing actually work together. A well-prepared home combined with thoughtful pricing strategy often creates a strong early interest from buyers, which we love, because now something the homeowner should ask themselves is whether they wait for interest rates to fall before selling. And again, trying to predict that is extremely difficult. I think buyers are actually getting used to the interest rates. What we do know is that buyers continue making long-term housing decisions regardless of short-term rate changes. People move forward for many, many reasons. There's just a change in lifestyle. There's changes in housing needs. There's a relocation, things like that. we see it all, which means buyers remain active in markets even as interest rates fluctuate. Now let's talk about something else that plays a role in Alamo Heights, specifically architectural character. So we love Alamo Heights, and many homes in this neighborhood were built decades ago. They feature gorgeous architectural details that buyers love. And things like original hardwood floors are big, thoughtful craftsmanship, big, unique design elements, very big. And when those homes have been carefully maintained or updated, buyers often respond very positively, which means homeowners who take the time to prepare their homes thoughtfully actually can create a strong first impression. We really help with that because first impressions really matter. Buyers often form an opinion about a home within the first few moments of walking in the door. Truly, it's imperative. So things like we focus on are lighting, the presentation of the home, the maintenance, like how does a yard look when they pull up? All of those things influence how our buyers perceive the property. We love a freshly painted front door. That's always good. Now, as we step back and look at the larger question again, is 2026 a good time to buy or sell in Alamo Heights? The most accurate answer is it depends on individual circumstances. So for buyers, the key factors are how the house is prepared, understanding their own buying power, and evaluating the opportunities thoughtfully. For sellers, prepare your house, price strategically, and that will really determine the success of your sale. That's why conversations about the markets are most helpful when they focused on individual goals rather than the general headlines, because the right decision for one person may not be the same for someone else. Now, if you're watching this video and you're considering buying or selling a home in Alamo Heights, the most helpful next step is often just a simple conversation. A conversation about your goals and your timeline. That's a big one for us because how the current market conditions might influence your plans. We can help you with all of that. For those of you who may be new to our channel, we are a Park Properties Group, the Phyllis Browning Company. I'm Caroline Deckard, and we are here in San Antonio. Our work focuses on helping buyers and sellers navigate the central San Antonio real estate market, including neighborhoods like Alamo Heights, Terrell Hills, Olmos Park, Monte Vista, and nearby areas. We spend a great deal of time studying the local market and helping clients approach real estate decisions with preparation and clarity. If you're considering buying or selling and you'd like help thinking through your options, we invite you to schedule a confidential strategy consultation with our team. You'll find a link to schedule that conversation in the description below this video. And if you found this discussion helpful, consider subscribing to the channel. We would love to stay in touch. We regularly share insights about the central San Antonio real estate market and the strategies that help people make confident decisions. Thank you for spending this time with us. We love our clients and we love our friends, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a great one.